It is Friday. Another episode of Standard Issues Behind the Seams. Our host is back, Jared Lee.
Hello.
How you feel today?
I'm good.
You all right?
Yeah, we have a very wonderful guest today.
He's hosting. Here, let's go. Let's roll.
Go ahead.
No, it's what is important today is that we have someone that is very that is a vital part of a lot of communities to the city of Los Angeles. That's
Absolutely.
where we're based at. It's where I've spent the better half of the last 17 years of my life at. It's where Jared
I grew up here.
is from. So, we got to continue to make sure we are not even a on par representation of Los Angeles and an exceptional representation of Los Angeles. And the gentleman that we have here today, I think, surpasses that bar. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, let Jared do the honor. We have Mr.
We have over here Mr. OG CHINO.
Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here on such short notice too.
Yes, for sure. On a Friday at that. Too.
No, I wasn't doing anything.
12 to 2 on a Friday is like, that's like in the middle. Yeah. Half hour each way and travel.
Yep.
That's a trip right there. So yeah, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
8 miles too.
I would say about a month ago, Jared goes, I want to do a project with a friend of mine. He's got a restaurant in K-Town. I'm like, oh, amazing. I love working with people that are in the food industry. And he goes, his restaurant is Colombian and Mexican.
No, Colombian and Korean.
Not Mexican.
I'm saying Colombian and Korean. I'm sorry. So I'm like, yo, even better, because Jared has obviously put me and my family on to like the finest of Korean food. So real quick little backstory. I meet my wife. She's Mexican. My father-in-law is making soup one time. And he goes, and I'm like, Rick, you could put a banana in there? And he looks at me, he's like, you don't put no bananas in my soup. He's like, where do you know that from?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole family looks at me and they're like, oh yeah, so where did you get this information about putting the banana in there? And I'm just sitting there playing dumb, like, oh, nothing. Previously at a prior stage of my life, I dated a Colombian girl.
Oh, yeah.
And her grandmama put me on the sancocho. And I'm not even thinking. I'm thinking the banana can go in any type of soup from Central and South America, So, and it's something to this day. That was 13, 14 years ago. They still bust my balls about it. So, so I was like, hey, we need some bandeja paisa. We need some sancocho. So, immediately I looked at the menu and was like, oh yeah, we got to do this project and we need to go over there.
And we got to eat over there
bust
too.
A grub. So
yeah, and we do put the plantain in the
that's what I'm saying.
soup, so there you go.
So all that, the yuca, I need all of it. But yeah, again, thank you for coming through. Obviously we've I've done my research. Jared has known your background.
Yeah.
And we're psyched to have you on here.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming again. Really.
Where do we start at?
Where do we start at? So let's start with Chino.
Yeah.
How did you get the name Chino, right? Like,
wow. The name Chino, well, at first, probably back in Colombia, when, I was raised in Bogota. So, and there was no Asian kids. Yeah. Kids didn't know what a Korean was. So I would be called Japonés or Chino. But that was more like, I don't know, like in a way making fun of me, but not in a bad way. Everybody gives each other nicknames over there. So I didn't take it seriously as like, oh yeah, I'm going to take on that nickname Chino, And Colombian people are very proper. So they will call you that sometimes, but then they really will choose to call you by your birth name.
Okay.
But once I came to LA was when, ESL class, Mexican mostly and Korean. But my Korean was really broken. Mm-hmm. So I clicked with the Mexican kids. And they're the ones that really started calling me Chino. And I just got used to it, I just got used to it. And I think it's like when we started, you know, like hanging out with like the neighborhood gangs and stuff that I really took on the name. Like, okay, I'm gonna write that on the wall.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
And ever since then, it's just been stuck with me, man. Like, you know, I'm old now, and people still call me Chino. My sister even introduces me as Chino to people.
Oh, okay.
Which is weird for a Korean sister, you know. Yeah. But yeah, that's how the name came, you know.
Sick.
Your pops was a diplomat.
Yeah. He worked more on the cultural side,
All
but he was one of the first Koreans to settle, you know, in Colombia, and helped, like, you know, set up the embassy along with the other diplomats.
What year was this?
This was 1967.
Like literally the only. Were there other Asians over there in Colombia, like Japanese people, Chinese people?
Maybe Japanese, but no. I mean, I'm sure there was, but it wasn't a presence that you felt, you know.
For sure.
Yeah. There were some Chinese restaurants here and there back then, so I'm sure there were Chinese people back then. But no, like you know, it was really rare to see an Asian person on the street, and we just got made fun of, like, every time we stepped out the house because it wasn't normal, you know. But I don't know. For me, maybe because I was a kid, I never felt too bothered by it. You know, like I understood that we weren't from there, you know.
Right.
And I understood that people were tripping out because they never seen an Asian. So I never really got bothered, you know, by the teasing and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And how old were you there till?
Till I was there. Well, I'm the youngest of four, so I was only about a year and a half old when we went there. My father moved there first, and then he sent for the rest of us. Around 10, 11 was when we moved to the States. And that was just us, my sisters and my brother and myself. My mom came with us at first, but the whole idea back then was to set us up and let us go to school here, and they would stay back in Colombia. My father maintained his Taekwondo thing because he's a Taekwondo guy. But that was a weird decision, I guess, for parents to do that. But at that time, it wasn't that rare for Korean parents to send their kids to the States.
Right, yeah.
How long were you living in Colombia before you moved to the States?
About 10 years.
10 years. Okay, got you.
Yeah, my whole early childhood, yeah.
Were there more Koreans and Asian people coming over after the embassy was set up? And
yeah, a little more. And we used to gather at the embassy, you know, the Korean community. But I would say in total, it was probably just a few dozen people.
Oh, wow.
You know, it wasn't many people. Like, we all gathered and we would fit in 2 buses and take a trip together.
Right.
Yeah.
Your father, that's why I had seen that your father was a Taekwondo.
Yes.
When you say instructor, master.
Yeah, they credit him for being the founder of Taekwondo there. Because he was more in charge of the cultural exchange.
Gotcha.
Oh.
So him being a Taekwondo master already, it just made sense that he would, you know, go set up a Taekwondo thing.
That shit. I grew up kind of in the hood, and right next to us there was a church. That church had a gym, and in that gym there was a Taekwondo class every single day. So I was like a latchkey kid. My mom's going to work 17-hour days.
Where was this? LA?
Outside of Philadelphia.
Philly, wow.
So she was like, she saw me, I had interest in it. She sent me that Taekwondo class every day from about 5 to 11, every single day. And I don't think anything during that time period, my pops wasn't around. Like, I didn't, between all this different sports I played, nothing in my life instilled in me like the discipline, the self-control, just all of the lessons that Taekwondo. Did you know that? Did that?
I just we're born with
6-7 years.
it. Korean, you're born with it. It's in your blood, man.
But that's what I always remember, that it was from Korea. You know, like, you know, and then my instructor, his teachers like coming and visiting us and stuff. But it was him. I had a red belt with a black stripes.
Oh, you got pretty far.
7 years, and starting at that age, and then the instructor started dating this lady whose kid visited the class, and this kid slowly crept up to me in about 2-3 years in the work that I had done over the course of 6 or 7. And my mom said, "Jimmy, that's your introduction to politics."
It's a lot of politics
You know,
in
it's like,
Taekwondo.
holy, you know, because I would crush him in sparring. His form was nothing like me. I'd go to tournaments and win, and this kid was like, you know, would be nothing. But I'm like, how did he rise in the ranks as quick as I did? And I'm like, oh, well, his mom's now the instructor's girlfriend, so I understand.
Wow, he cheated.
Right. Yeah, but Taekwondo is amazing. Your father, and he still teaches to this day?
Well, he still has the school. He doesn't teach himself anymore.
Yeah.
You know, he's 88 years old now. But yeah, he still has, you know, instructors that he trained himself.
Get out of here.
And there's a lot of students that started there that are still teaching there now. Like that's gone up in the ranks.
The guys that are teaching there now are people that studied under him. Yeah, but
are there other Taekwondo schools out there, or is it
a lot still?
Oh, there's a lot now. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. In Colombia, they still like to send their kids to learn something after school.
Right.
You know?
Right.
A lot like Korea, I think.
For sure.
You know.
Very similar.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. And Taekwondo, for some reason, it's always remained, you know, kind of like here. People forgot about Taekwondo. Like, where do you see Taekwondo schools in the neighborhood anymore? Right. But over there, you still see them everywhere. You know,
okay,
it's still, yeah.
Because I think they don't have
see kids dressed up in the
right?
Yeah, you see kids dressed up in the gear, you know, like yeah. So they admire a lot of the Asian culture, which is pretty dope.
That's cool.
Yeah,
we have one studio near us in Eagle Rock. I was trying to get Amelia in.
It's probably $99 and 4 weeks free class with the free gi.
What is not even a gi though? It's called, right? Tobak.
Tobok.
Tobo.
Yeah.
See, I
got a little
quite some time. Tobo. Yeah.
So you came over to the States at age 10.
Age 10. Yeah.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And what was your journey from there?
A few months in Carson. That's when my mom, I guess, was just kind of, you know, testing out the waters, I guess. And then we ended up in Koreatown. Yeah. Koreatown in early 78.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Yeah.
I wasn't even born.
What's that?
I wasn't even born.
What year were you born?
81.
81, yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't even, it wasn't called Koreatown back
Just
then.
Los Angeles.
Yeah, it was just LA, you know.
When you look, obviously you've seen the change in LA, especially Koreatown, since you're a native there. Like, how much change is it? Is it like almost like a change of like what Korea became? Like, does it feel like that? Where it's just like a few apartment buildings?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know Korea that well for me to be able to compare with the changes in Korea.
Or even Colombia.
You know, no, Koreatown has changed right now it's like a really important part of Los Angeles.
Yes.
You know, it's mentioned along with Hollywood and downtown Koreatown. I think for a long time, Koreatown was just this immigrant neighborhood that no one really cared about as far as visiting or trying the different foods or in fact they made fun of Korean food back in the day.
Yeah,
you know?
damn.
Yeah.
So good. Why though?
Oh man, I remember when I was a kid in school here. Yeah, the Koreans used to get it. Like, oh man, you smell like you got kimchi breath, and
I don't know what.
and yeah, and then like your apartment hallway smell like shit and all this, like because they Korean mothers are fermenting stuff, and doenjang looks like shit to them, and. So yeah, I'm Korean people.
You didn't know how we've been feeding you shit.
Yeah,
It's a trip to me because it's like the community I grew up in is like every family ethnicity has their things like especially when it comes to cooking and shit. It's like I knew what friends I had that were like maybe their apartment building they were Indian. I knew like the spices and stuff that their family would use or. Even Italians, what they're cooking. It's interesting that I would have never guessed that it was being frowned upon or clowned that way back then.
Because I think it was so foreign.
Yeah,
that's why it's just like
very foreign. And Buddha head was the term back then. Like
Buddha head.
If you're Asian at school in the early '80s, you were called the Buddha head.
That's my first
and not always in a bad way. Like. My black homies would be like, "Oh, it's my Buddha head, homie." Not necessarily in a bad way either. I don't know, different times, man.
I just always heard K-Town was like the neighborhood, like you don't want to fuck with, you don't want to like just be out.
Well, that's the thing that sadly a lot of immigrant parents don't know about Koreatown, and they settle in Koreatown and they don't know like the street influence is heavy in Koreatown, and it's always been that way. Like when we got here in the late 70s, Koreatown was graffitied up, but I mean everywhere it was just gang graffiti. Like it was like where all the different gangs kind of clashed,
Oh, in K-Town.
Yeah, it was like the border between many gangs, and it's sad because immigrant parents don't know that's what their kids are gonna have to deal with while they're away at work and latchkey kids, like you were saying, and that's what happened to me too, like without even knowing because my parents weren't around. And it was worse for us because my mom would come and go, and when she was here, she was working at the sweatshop, so she wouldn't get home till late. And then when she went back to Colombia for a month at a time, 2 months at a time, we were like on our own basically. And my sister was only 16, 17, and she was the one taking
the mom.
So for us, I mean, luckily I didn't get too heavy into it, but I had to go through my phase.
LA is interesting, man. Even to this day, even my neighborhood, it's like you differentiate between there's like graffiti in like writers, and then there's neighborhood shit. Most people won't know the difference, but the large portion of the majority here is neighborhood shit. And that's from K-Town, Northeast LA, West Side. It's like
and back then there was no tagging back then. Everything was gang related on the wall.
That's true.
Yeah, this was before New York graffiti came in. So
your sister, 17, what was that pressure like for her being the big sis?
She's the oldest. Then my brother, who was 14. Then my other sisters, 12, and then me, 10. 11. My oldest sister went through it like I did, but she clicked with the Koreans, There was a gang back then called the Korean Killers in the 70s. And they're probably the first Korean gang, I assume, and they used to hang out at this bowling alley. It's called Western Bowl on Western between 7th and 8th Street. There's a big apartment building there now, and I think after the bowling alley closed, it was like a big nightclub for
7th and 8th and where?
On Western between 7th and 8th, right across the street from where like the Sizzler used to be.
Right.
Oh, the Privé.
Yeah,
The old
exactly.
Privé.
So that used to be a bowling alley. It was called Western Bowl.
Okay.
Yeah, in the 70s. And it was just like a movie, man. You walked in and it was Korean gangsters, full of Korean gangsters smoking cigarettes and dressed up. Some of them were dressed up as cholos back then. So it's in the 70s, yeah. And my sister used to hang out with them, so because she spoke Korean well, because, she's older. So so she still spoke Korean well. And so my sister was running around too, which made it easier for me to run around.
Right.
It's a trip. The shit, like the things our parents had to do just to get by back in the day, and the things that we had to do to get by back in the day, it's like, it's a mind fuck when I think about it. Like my older sisters were the ones, they were stuck with me half the time, and my sisters were the same thing. They were fucking hoodlums, yo. like last thing they felt like doing was dragging my little ass around.
And Philly, I've seen the hoods in Philly,
man. And the same thing. It's like I could have, especially the neighborhood we lived in. It was like I could have easily went down certain paths. Like luckily, I found skateboarding because it was like, that was the thing that skateboarding, karate was these things that like kept me from being a little knucklehead. Yeah. Your mom, the sweatshop she was working at, where were they located at back then?
I mean, she moved around from different, but like the one she worked at the most, where I would go visit her and spend the day with her sometimes, was right on the corner of 8th and Broadway.
Gotcha.
Right across the street from where the Apple store is now.
Right. The one that you're about to go.
You're about to go today.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's what's crazy for people that are from LA. Like the people born and raised here, seeing these decades and generational changes that the city goes through. And then again, look, that's where your mom worked, and you're about to go work there for Apple. That's a trip.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that. Like, wow, it's right across the street from.
That's crazy.
Can I say sweatshops, or is that a fucked up thing for me to say?
Oh, you already said it, man.
All right. Is that bad? Sweatshop?
No.
Yeah. And it's all sewing.
That's
and
what
stuff?
it was. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, and back then, most of those buildings in downtown.
Yeah, they're all sewing factories.
They're sewing factories. Yeah. And
sweatshops.
Yeah, and all the employees were Latinos and Koreans mostly.
Yeah, Koreans and Latinos for sure.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, this was what, like in the 80s.
Yeah,
in the 80s,
late 70s into the early 80s. That's the only job she could get because we were here as students. We got student visas to get here, and then but my mom would have to get her tourist visa to come in.
Oh.
So, yeah, she would have to just, that's the only jobs she could get.
So when you guys were staying and your mom was back in Colombia, there was no other guardian?
Well, there was a Korean family that lived in the same building.
Got it.
That were our sponsors, friends of our parents. But they weren't really there,
Right.
Yeah. So, we're pretty much
on your own.
Yeah, on our own.
That's why I asked about a big sister, because it's like, man, what was that pressure like?
And she ran away. Not long after. So after that,
she's like, y'all on your own. Figure it out, kid. Left some peanut butter jelly in the cabinet.
She ran away from our parents basically, but not us.
Yeah.
Like, me being little brother, she would always make sure I knew where she was at.
Yeah.
Anytime I needed a little money, I knew to call her. Every time I got in trouble,
you called her.
Yeah, she was the one that come pick me up at the police station.
Your sister ever?
You're the closest? You're closest to your oldest sister?
Not back then. Back then. Back then we really didn't even talk or hang out with each other much. She's in her world and I was in mine, and I was closer to my other sister.
Oh, okay.
Passed away. But I was closer to, and my brother, of course. But no, I think my older sister and I became closer as as adults.
Yeah, for sure.
Because then I think we understood our past.
For sure.
Yeah, we understood each other.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wild ass.
My older sisters fucked people up for me. Like I got beat up a couple. I was little, yo. I was like 60 pounds soaking wet probably back then. 50 pounds and bigger kids would fuck with me. And then I felt bad. I'm like, you ain't got to answer to me. You got to answer to my sister. She legit threw a brick at a kid before. Yeah.
Wow.
They were raw. Yeah.
She loves you.
Yeah.
How's she doing today?
Oh, they're doing great. They're excellent mothers. They've raised between the two of them 8 amazing kids. And I that same fear and terror that they struck in enemies of mine as a kid, I'm sure they struck the same thing in their children's enemies and teachers, presumably.
Yeah.
So, but it's in K-Town and just in LA in general, growing up at that time period, you're seeing the development and the rise and origins of like a lot of amazing communities, I'm sure, from the graffiti and art to music.
Yeah, the hip hop. I mean, I saw mostly the whole hip hop community from the beginning, you know.
What's your earliest memories of the rap community in Philly as a kid?
I mean, in LA?
I mean, I'm sorry, in LA, shit.
Well, I don't know, because see, it's like my earliest memories of what I consider the scene in LA wasn't hip hop. It was like an LA funk scene.
Gotcha.
Right? But those are the same people that evolved into the whole
The
hip-hop
DJs and
thing.
shit?
Yeah.
Like that?
The DJs like Uncle Jam's Army, the dance crews back then. And there was no rap music that they were dancing to. It was all funk music. But it was the same people that started, you know, when breakdancing started, they started doing it too, you know.
Yeah.
So I saw the scene before it became like a hip hop scene, I guess.
Gotcha. That's amazing, yo.
Yeah.
What was the attire? Like, what were cats dressing like at that point?
Oh man, like everything was creased. All the designer jeans were coming out back then. So you had like the Calvin Kleins were brand new, and the Sergio Valentes. The girls wore the Sassoons and Jordache. So all these blue jean brands. That was the thing. And I think that's probably like when this whole designer era started.
Yeah.
What about footwear? What was the earliest?
Footwear. Well, I would say mostly the black kids at school were the ones that set the fashion.
Gotcha.
You know, and they would dress super crispy, you know. There was a phase back then when they would all dress like preppies, you know, wear polos and Lacoste and topsiders, boat shoes, you know, and penny loafers. It was all about looking preppy back then, you know. But then they would add their own touches, like flipping up the collars and starching the collars so they would stay up all day. But everything was ironed and creased. Man, I think fashion back then was pretty dope. I think it was pretty dope.
That's it.
Because everything had to be pieced together too.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That's it. As an outsider, it's like you got to really do some homework to understand that the fashions in LA, 80s, 90s, 2000s, whatever, you know, we're always just led to believe it's just like, we're just thinking cats are just wearing Dickies outfits every single day.
No,
like that's it.
I mean, back
like,
then, if you wore Dickies back then, it's because you were a gangbang.
Gotcha,
you know, you just didn't wear Dickies for no reason. You know, you were, you know, gang related, or you were a pop locker, or, you know. But you just didn't. No, Dickies weren't just regular fashion. You know, it was definitely gang gear back then.
Gotcha.
It's like a uniform.
Yeah.
So you're watching the DJs, you're watching the break crews and funk develop. Do you remember that introduction specifically to hip hop?
When Rapper's Delight came out, that's when I was in 8th grade. When Rapper's Delight came out, and kids at school started rapping it, but we didn't recognize it as like a new form of art. It was just like these dudes are just rapping. You know what I mean? But the music was still funk, you know, like a disco funk. And then I don't think we really got that it was hip hop till like Malcolm McLaren and Herbie Hancock put out songs that went really commercial, you know, and then on the videos you would see the break dancers and you would see the graffiti, and that's when we said, okay, it's something, you know, and that's when we started we would understand then what Curtis Blow was saying. Oh, he's talking about hip hop, right? Yeah, that's when we started getting it. I think it was around 82. Oh, yeah, 82 when we started really realizing that hip hop was coming from New York. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But we didn't even call it hip hop. I think we just didn't, you know, we didn't have a name for it. But we knew that it was all related, the graffiti and the way that they dressed with the fat laces and all that. And then you had the early dudes that moved out here from New York. Yeah. That set off, like, you know, the whole graffiti scene, you know, like this guy named Soon, who's still around, but shout out to Soon. But he was probably the earliest guy that I saw on the walls that wasn't gang graffiti. No way. Okay. And he wrote really well. Like the New York tag was really nice. And so that's when we started learning, oh, okay, this is that stuff we see on those videos. And for me, for example, I got to see Star Wars when it came out on PBS. So PBS is like the educational channel, right? Yeah. So not too many people watch that, but I used to tune into it, and boom, one day I'm sitting at home, and that's when I really like started getting it. I was still like, you know, running with the gang and all that stuff, but I think those were the points where like I really started realizing, oh shit, this is like fresh. This is fresh. Like something else to get into, you know what I mean? Like, because I was kind of really burnt out on the whole gang thing because it's just getting in trouble all through school and, you know, unnecessary stress because I didn't want to fail my parents either, who are far away. But meanwhile, I'm gangbanging, you know? So it was really like, for hip hop to come, it was like a big saving force, not just for me, but a lot of my homies started getting into the whole hip hop thing back then, you know. 83, 84, that's when it really exploded in LA. Like, that's when kids were like, fuck, hip hop, you know. Right. Yeah, by 84, you know, there was a nice scene in LA, you know. Got it. Ice-T and, you know, Ice-T used to be on the street, Hollywood and Highland. Every Friday night, you would see Ice-T with the boombox, and everybody would gather and start breakdancing and pop locking. It was the hangout. Yeah, that's sick. In different parts of LA, you know, Santa Monica Pier was a big hangout for the hip hop kids. Yeah, I'm like totally like picturing all this in my head right now. That's pretty sick. Yeah,
that because when my context is always what I saw on TV, or you know, and it's like. My earliest thing is like going to buy a tape, and it was like Eazy-E or NWA, and it's like, yo, obviously there's far more lineage that goes beyond that. So like when I hear stuff from people it's like yourself that can help bridge that gap is like, it's always super cool to hear.
Absolutely, you know? For sure. So what was your like how? So obviously you say you moved to New York. When did you go to New York then?
Oh, that was much later. Oh, okay. In the mid 90s.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, in the mid 90s. That was much later. But again, it was hip hop that took me to New York. You know? By that time, I was working in the industry, so you know it made sense.
Yeah.
I read that you took a gig with Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
What year was this, and how old were you?
This was 91. So I was 24.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You had already been doing stuff with music and with hip hop prior to that?
Man. Like I think my foot in it, like I opened my own door basically into the industry by opening my own little record shop. And this was
I was in the
Slauson.
In the swap meet.
No,
all right.
No, it wasn't the swap meet. It was an actual store.
All right.
On Slauson and West Boulevard, a couple blocks from where Nipsey's store is.
Gotcha.
You know, this was '88. That's when I had dropped out of. I was going to art school. I dropped out, and I just thought, you know, selling records would be a good business because I bought a lot of records, right? And hip hop, and I was just like really into hip hop. So I was like, I could sell all this hip hop shit that people don't know about, but I know about it, you know? So I opened this record store. It didn't do well, but it made some history, you know? Like a lot of people in LA still remember that shop.
What was the name of it?
B-Boy Records. Yeah. Just like there was a record label called B-Boy Records, and we kind of share the name. The record label was out of New York, and they're the ones that put out KRS-One and BDP's first records. And and those are the first artists that I was like officially trying to help move out here, like as far as just selling records. You know, because there were no outlets for a lot of these small record labels.
Right.
So the record store didn't do well. It only lasted a few years, but the record companies recognized me, you know. Rick Rubin moved out here like I think 90, and he set up Def American Records. He was breaking apart from Def Jam, so he started Def American, and he was looking for promotions, marketing and promotions guy, and I got recommended, and I got the job.
That's sick.
I started as an intern for a little bit, but I was the first one in. So, I got the job. My first record was "Baby Got Back."
Get out of here.
Sir Mix-a-Lot. So
that was Sir Mix-a-Lot was on his label.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
And that was my first project to promote.
Oh my gosh.
And back then it wasn't.
Well, you did a good job because I remember it coming to. That was when I was in elementary, and I'm like,
that song was huge, though. I mean, it's still huge. To this day.
Of course.
I mean, I can't say I did it. I mean, I think the song just kind of, blew up on its own because it was a pop record, really. Yeah. I personally didn't like the record, because I was a hip hop head. So for me, it was like, I would call people like Red Alert in New York, legends that I looked up to. And I would now have to call them on the phone and ask them to play this record. And, Red Alert laughed at me, Shit. He was like, you really think I'm going to play this shit? I'm like, sorry, dude, I'm just doing my job. But so, that lasted a few years. And that's
what other artists or any other records or artists on the label that you worked with?
Well, back then, on the hip hop side, there was a group called the Art of Origin, which is Chino XL.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, Chino XL and Kerry Chandler. Yeah. Kerry Chandler went on to become a mega house music producer, so he's super successful. And Chino XL, of course, is still around.
Chino was on Def America too?
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, so this was a shout out to Dan Charnas. Dan Charnas, who wrote the J Dilla book. He's the one that was the A&R man. So I worked under Dan Charnas. He was basically my boss and my mentor in the whole music industry thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's crazy how you just kind of like just from your interest, it's just like
it
opens so many new doors. And
I always feel like I had a blessed life. Like I came really close to just fucking up my whole life, many times, right, as a young kid. But then for all this to happen, it's weird, but I think if you just kind of just stay on a path, right? Like if you think of something that you love and you just stay on it, where else are you gonna go, right? You'll get there, and I think I got there. You know?
These worlds are like that are built around creativity, music, fashion. Even with me skating, it's like if it's something you truly, truly love, which obviously all of us do, you know, these opportunities have a way of finding themselves to you. You know, it's like people can see when someone is genuinely into something, and those are the people that traditionally get asked to do and be part of these things, you know. So your love and passion for it is what leads you to these things, you know. That's just my thought.
So from doing the music, you moved to New York.
Yeah.
From
after
the record label.
After the record label job, I moved to New York. I did like 2 years in Dallas in between, which is weird, but I always mention that because it was such a valuable time of my life too. Those 2 years in Dallas was, again, something that I didn't mean to do. I met another graffiti artist and we clicked. I was like, oh, I paint too, let's go paint. And it was just the timing that we ended up painting a lot. And I had no idea, but later on, they contacted me to be in the Dallas documentary about Dallas hip hop, because apparently I'm like one of the early graffiti guys.
Where you and your man, you and your boy, like, yo, you just want to go crush Dallas for a couple years,
you know. So being acknowledged in Dallas is so dope. And I was only there for those 2 years. You know what I mean? And I could go to Dallas now and I still be treated like family. You know?
That's it.
And I was there at a time when Erykah Badu was coming up. Erykah Badu was getting signed during that time. So me having done promotions at Rick Rubin's, you know, I was already friends with all the DJs because I was always talking to them on the phone. So, you know, DJs like Baby G, Eddie D, these were legendary DJs there. So, you know, who else am I going to hang out with but the DJs that I know? And they introduced me to that whole Dallas hip hop scene from the beginning, you know. So I got to become part of that whole scene at a time when Dallas was getting on the map, you know, especially with Erykah and, you know, and that whole scene, you know. So, wow, what a blessing to you know, to be part of that and to feel part of that.
What made you move from there, though? If you just kind of got there just to start, like,
well, I went there for a job that had nothing to do with music, because, like, I don't know, I think I went through a time when I was kind of like mad at the music industry, you know, like the whole behind the scenes,
right?
And so I you know, I was broke. I needed a job. You know, my sister had a hookup and took on a job in Dallas that had nothing to do. And that ended pretty soon. It was, I can't get into it, but it's like a crazy story that I probably shouldn't even mention this guy, right?
We can cut that out.
But that's when next day I decided I'm gonna make my move to New York. I didn't want to come back to LA because I was really bored of LA. I knew the scene here. I knew that there was, you know, so and New York, I always wanted to move to, you know, New York is like the dream for any hip hop head, you know. I was good friends with this guy. Being Korean in the music industry at that time was rare. So there's Peter Kang, who was an A&R man at Relativity. He had signed Common, he signed the Beatnuts, you know, he signed. So he was managing them too. But we became friends just on the fact that we're both Korean. Like, So he got me, you know, my first gigs in New York. Working for DJ Honda, doing his artwork, and then eventually I started helping him manage a group called the Executioners, the X-Men. They were like the legendary battle DJs, but they formed a group together and they got offered a record deal. So Peter is busy with, you know, handling other artists. So he wants me to start taking them on the road. yeah, so that became my gig for I guess most most of the time I was in New York, I was touring with the Executioners and on the side doing artwork for like Fat Beats and all these independent artists. And so yeah, I was like living that hip hop life, you know, like
that's a good time in hip hop too.
Yeah, the mid 90s into, you know. I thought I was late. I thought I got to New York like, no way, man, I missed out. I thought, you know.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, now I think back, I think that was a great time in New York.
Time.
Yeah.
I was just in Tokyo and I listened to the same DJ Honda song the whole fucking time. This the same record, this on repeat, because it just like it felt very representative of the just the energy of the trip I was on. The one with the Most Def one.
Oh, traveling, man.
The whole time. Like I would just walk around with it in my headphones. Like I like DJ Honda.
Yeah.
No, but that was a great era.
Yeah,
just of hip hop in general. You know, but being in the thick of it in New York too, you know.
So that was another, you know, cool thing that happened, you know, getting to experience, I mean, touring, you know, like I never thought. And then for a few of those years, those guys were not even, they weren't vocal. So they needed someone to introduce them on stage and stuff. So I had to take on the role of like introducing the group,
the MC too,
and kind of being like the hype man and stuff. So you know, I benefited from being on stage and being on tour. And I'm a single man, you know what I'm saying? So I benefited from that for a few years. You know?
Chino was out there.
Yeah.
And back then, not to jump too far forward, but did you already have culinary aspirations back then?
No, man, no. The whole, you know, the restaurant thing happened again because I think my run came to an end, you know, like the whole managing the group and, you know, the group separated. One of them passed away, you know, Rock Raider, rest in peace. But, yeah, all that came to an end, and I'm still stuck in this era of like the 90s hip hop, right?
What year did they break? What year did they stop?
Like 2005, around there.
Gotcha.
And I think around there's like hip hop started to change too.
Yeah.
And I wasn't tapping into like, oh, this is what's going on, or trying to manage a new artist. You know, I was just kind of out of it for a while, you know, and
I mean, that was a drastic change in hip hop too around that. It's like a lot of South artists and even major labels are like more independent acts are starting to get going.
And our hustle in New York was, you know, you work with whatever artist and like, yo, let's put out a record. And it was that easy. Just go record the shit and you know, put out 5,000 copies and sell them, you know, because, you know, we have the connections to sell in Japan and Europe and everybody's buying physical product back then. Yeah. So, but that hustle just came to like a really abrupt end, you know, like when the digital era came out, it's just like, boom, you know. So it's coming that's when, I had a few years when again, and now I'm in my 40s, right? And I'm again trying to figure out my life, like, shit, what am I gonna do now? So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just get into my artwork or something. And, you know, but I'm not really, I didn't really, you know, find nothing steady, you know, to maintain myself with. So it was always like a hustle, you know, until the opportunity came to take over the space in Koreatown. And again, this was through my older sister, you know. One of her close friends owned Bohemian, which was the Korean bar. Yeah, that was in that same space, and he was wrapping that up, and he wanted to pass on the space to someone that, you know, that can bring in a different crowd. He was already seeing that Koreatown is not gonna be the same; it's gonna change. Yeah. So So my sister's like, hey, this would be perfect for you. You like throwing parties and stuff, you know? So, but that's what I was thinking. Like, yeah, cool. I'll invite all my DJ homies and we'll just have parties and stuff. But the whole food part, it's the law, you know. Your liquor license requires you to sell food, you know.
Oh.
Yeah, and you have to sell more than 50% food or something like that. So it was kind of forced on me.
No way.
I can't own a bar without selling food.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
That's why a lot of bar has just bad food.
Yeah, and I had no idea, man, because I don't even cook. So I'm like, you know, I'm thinking burgers. I'm thinking, you know.
When you, not to cut you off, but when you came, so as a kid, did you develop a palate for Colombian food when you were living in Bogota?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like my favorite food because growing up eating.
So when you moved to LA, where did you get that fix here as a kid?
Couldn't. Yeah, you couldn't. And back then, there was nothing Colombian.
Right.
You know,
it's all Mexican.
Yeah, it's all Mexican. And then Central Americans started coming in. But no, nothing Colombian. So we were, you know, and that's, I think, one of the reasons I went for that, you know. Like, yeah, it's my favorite food, you know. And it was under pressure, too, because I couldn't, the restaurant was pretty much done, like as far as getting it set up. And the last thing was the menu because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then I think it was just under pressure, not knowing what to do. Like I said, our two favorite foods, Korean and Colombian. Let's just do those things together, you know. And then that's when Alice introduced me to Chris O.
Yes.
He was he's the happening Koreatown chef and all that. So he helped me get started with the initial menu. Yeah. Of course, he didn't have any idea of what Colombian food was.
Who did you bring in on that side to help him out?
No, I mean, I think at the beginning, the menu wasn't so Colombian because it was Chris O's interpretation. I took him with Colombian food at the couple of restaurants that already existed in LA. And he tried it out, and so he got an idea. But no, I think I got another chef from Colombia who came from Colombia and remixed the menu, you know, and made it a little more Colombian. But
is it more Colombian though?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's more Colombian, and there's really little Korean touches, you know, like we do kalbi in a Colombian bandeja, you know, but I don't try to make it like Korean because we're in Koreatown and I'm not gonna compete.
With another Korean
with
restaurant.
The real super authentic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and we need more Colombian. So I figured the menu would make more sense if it's more Colombian. Yeah.
The only one I know is Escala.
This spot that used to be on Melrose, right?
It's still there.
It's still there.
It's still there.
And then one other
La
spot.
Fonda Antioqueña. That's old school.
That's old school, right? Yeah.
They've been around for a long time.
Like I said, I ventured in there a couple times. I don't know how I got there, but But yeah, now I was looking at the menu and I'm like, you know, fried yuca, like I said, the bandeja paisa, the sancocho, like I can't wait to go eat there. So
okay,
it's gonna be fun. And then I've had friends that have visited there before, and they've all said the same thing. The ambiance is amazing. The doors that open up to the front, but particularly the music. Yeah. That the soundtrack that you cater to their experience, you know.
Yeah, that part is again the hip hop part of me. You know? Like I just can't help it, but to make the ambience, ambience feel like hip hop. You know. Yeah. So, and that's what makes me enjoy that business. You know, because I get to do that. It's almost like my living room.
Yeah.
If I couldn't do hip hop in that restaurant and it was just a restaurant bar, I'd be pretty miserable because I still don't enjoy the business of having a restaurant.
Right.
It's not an enjoyable business, man. You know, like I'd rather sell records or whatever.
The business part sucks in everything, right?
It does, man.
Business, yeah. But
restaurants especially, it's tough, man.
yeah.
Yeah, because you're dealing with, you know, different tastes. You know, not everyone's gonna like your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and yeah, you know.
You can't please everyone.
Nah, yeah. Service industry is like the tough, because that's where you're dealing with real, like you said, human emotions and taste buds, and it's like everyone's got a fucking opinion. every red cent needs to be accountable for, or else you're getting a terrible Yelp review. You know, it's like it's a tough world to live in, man. But it seems, and just from, you know, it seems like all, you know, so much of your friends and family and just community of people you have worked with and interacted with over the years, it seemed like so many different awesome people come through there.
Yeah.
And eat and obviously, like, you know, seeing people like Raekwon there, seeing, like I said, the Beat Nuts there, seeing Ra, seeing like all the, that's what I thought was cool when Jared had introduced me to who you are. I'm like, this is world of LA that is during this time period, like you said, mid 90s, early 90s, like that, like those LA rappers, the Beat Nuts, the Alcoholics, like so many big artists from LA that people don't necessarily, I mean, those that know, but like on a grander scale, you don't realize they make up such an important part of the hip hop in LA, you know, so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they all earned their legend status now, you know, so. Yeah, so now, I mean, for me, it seems like just yesterday, but we're talking about artists that put out albums 30 years ago. Yeah. You know?
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, 20, 30 years ago. So.
But those memories will always be so important to us, you know? Them shits always feel like it's just yesterday.
Yeah.
You know?
So, yeah, and to see artists still doing it, it's like, wow, you know, you've been doing this for a lifetime, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of those same cats that maybe they don't live here, when they do come to visit, you're probably one of the first people they call upon touching down, huh?
Yeah, I think the word got around, you know, there's like a hip hop kind of hangout in LA, and you know, I have a lot of friends in New York, so they definitely help spread the word, and yeah, so it's a lot of the hip hop artists from that era, you know, they make the stop, you know.
That's cool,
yeah, which is dope, you know, like.
I mean, it's a testament to you too. I'm sure even without the food and whatever you were going to put in that space was going to be a spot that they were going to tap into based off of that relationship that you have with them. But
luckily, it's good food.
Yes, which I can't wait to try. So, what does the rest of the weekend? What does just the rest of life look like for OG Chino?
Man, well, try to, you know, maintain this restaurant now, you know. But I don't know. I do want to open a spot in Colombia.
Oh, no way.
And kind of take more Korean food out there. Make it the reverse, you know. Same ambiance.
Yeah.
Same ambiance, but introduce more Korean food to Colombia.
Is there a lot of Korean food out there, or it's still pretty basic?
No, it's still very new, you know. People are just getting hip to like Korean fried chicken a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Colombia is still being educated as far as the differences between Asian foods.
Totally.
You know.
Totally.
So there's, you know, so sushi is big out there, but they don't necessarily know that sushi is Japanese.
Right.
You know, they just kind of assume it to be Asian. So yeah, so that kind of makes me feel like, okay, let's, you know, kind of really make a statement on what Korean is. You know, like
I'm sure K-pop and stuff is.
I mean, there are authentic Korean restaurants in Colombia that are owned by Korean families that have been there for a long time. But those places are just that, are like authentic Korean food. So
Right.
you don't go there to hang out with your friends or
Right.
listen to music or stuff. So that would be the difference, you know, kind of.
Do you see do you see opportunity out there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Colombian people are very curious too, so they like to try everything.
Yeah.
And man, it's something about being in Colombia and its people. You know, it's a special country. You know, like if I had to choose a place to be raised all over again, I would probably choose
That's awesome,
Colombia all over again. People there have just a happy attitude. You know, they know how to appreciate things, and it's all about enjoying life, and not because it's a money thing. Most people in Colombia are not rich. You know, the poverty, poverty level there is crazy. But the way they manage to just be happy, you know, and they show that energy, you know, is dope.
That's amazing, yo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool to hear that.
Yeah, especially when you're not from there. You
Yeah.
know, they're proud of being Colombian, so they want to make sure that
that we feel it.
Yeah, that you're happy there. You know?
That's awesome, yo.
Yeah,
Good
so-
hospitality.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's awesome, man.
I mean, you definitely like it's, you know, obviously it's like we get so much from the television and whatnot. It's like, you know, that's a far different picture that's painted than, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, that's just one truth.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I mean,
but to speak, you know, it's like to I hate generalizations. So it's like to generalize a whole country that
yeah,
clearly you speak of so beautifully and so from such a humble standpoint. It's like, you know, far incorrect
yeah.
characterization than what we know. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's awesome. You know?
Yeah.
You still get down there a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I just came back like a week ago. My father still lives there.
Yeah.
You know, he never left, so you know now I gotta go there pretty often and watch over him. You know, but
How long is the flight there?
they got rid of the direct flights. So a direct flight would have been about 7 hours, but now you gotta
jump over layover.
Yeah, layover. So yeah, but I mean, about 7 hours flying time.
Gotcha.
You know.
Okay. Where do you have to go?
You could do a layover depending on the airline, but yeah, usually like El Salvador, Panama.
Oh, okay. Down
On the
got
way,
it. Okay.
Yeah. If you take an airline from the States, then you end up doing like Houston or Atlanta. You
Okay.
end up
and then
kind
go
of
down. Oh, okay.
going
sense.
a different route. But it's not that far, you know.
Yeah.
It's not
7
that
hours
far.
far.
Huh? 7
7
hours?
hours
That's not too
far.
bad. Nah.
Really?
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Going to Korea is
Yeah.
like what, 12
I'm
hours?
like 3 hours good.
When your dad, when he first took the position down there, did he go down there thinking it was going to be like a couple year thing, or did he go in it with the headspace like, yeah, this could be where I spend the rest of my life at?
I think he was under contract. Like I think there was a time when he had to go back. I think one of the reasons why he didn't go back, well, besides falling in love with Colombia and you know, dude had girlfriends, you know what I mean? Like my dad was just like, you know.
His pop's a player.
Yeah, he put my mom's through it. You know?
No.
Yeah, but besides that, I think another thing was that you know how in Korea we have the males have to serve in the military.
Yeah.
I think that was a way for him to avoid my brother and I having
Oh, okay.
to go to the military. You know.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm
But
glad
he-
he didn't go back.
Yeah, he did fall in love with Colombia over
Oh
Korea.
yeah. I mean, he has a dual citizenship. He got a Colombian citizenship too. You know, so.
Has he been back to Korea ever since it's redeveloped, or he's kind of just stayed?
No. I mean, he's gone there to visit, you know. Yeah, of course. I mean, he wants to visit now, which is tough because at his age.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, I mean, I want to grant him that wish and take him to Korea, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sick.
You guys still have a lot of family in Korea, I assume.
Yeah. I mean, our family is not that big, but yeah, I do have uncles, you know. And I'm not close to anyone in Korea, but yeah, my sister still keeps in touch with some family there, and my father.
That's a true.
Yeah.
You have nephews and nieces?
Yeah, they're all in the States.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do they trip out that they got family in LA and in the States, family in Colombia, and family in Korea?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they trip out. They've been so used to it, you know. But yeah.
It's like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just something that we think about as adults.
Yeah.
We got family all over the world.
Yeah.
I don't think they value that.
Yeah, not yet.
When they get older, they will, for sure. Should we go to the restaurant now? Damn, well,
My
shit.
treat, man. Anytime.
No, we're gonna be there.
We'll be there for sure.
Yes, we absolutely will. So we got to get this project done for sure, and then we have to launch it at the restaurant with you DJing, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's
That'd
gonna be
be
too busy. He can't be DJ.
No, I mean, Mick said he was DJing when he was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You still DJ yourself there, see?
Yeah.
Oh, at the restaurant too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You really don't want to touch the restaurant part. You're just like,
Yeah. I hardly walk into that kitchen. Like when I have to walk in the kitchen, I'm like,
you're like, damn it, why do I gotta go in here?
Damn.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come for the music and for the food.
For sure.
But yeah, let's definitely get that project done.
Yep.
Let's get the launch going.
Yep.
Let's go eat. And let's let Chino not have to muscle through Friday
I know.
traffic to get
To DJ at
downtown LA. Yeah.
the Apple Music Store.
But yeah, congrats is still at this point, you're still being able to do that and still having companies like Apple recognize who you are and what you do and allow you to.
which is random because I think in LA, people don't really see me as a DJ just because when I was in LA, I was more like working at the record company. Everybody knew I had a lot of records, but I wasn't out DJing at parties or whatever much. So in LA, I hardly ever get asked to DJ anywhere, you know. But in New York, it was a regular thing. I think New York sees me more like a DJ than LA.
Then over here.
Yeah. So this Apple thing was just kind of random, you know, that they asked me to come and spin. So
That's sick.
that's pretty cool. Yeah.
So yeah, somebody there knows.
For
They
sure.
recognize.
Yep.
Oh.
All right.
Shit, man. Thank you, Chino. We'll get you some, and we got to get him some shirts and stuff.
Absolutely. Yep.
Oh, thank you, man.
Part with, get you through the weekend.
Yep.
I'll work on this project.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so much for coming
Thank
out.
you, man.
Thank you.
Thank
OG
you.
Chino. You're the man.